On the festival of Shavuot, which is coming up, one of the special mitzvahs of the day. Today we don't really know how to practice most things. There's someone who puts out a halachic digest for Yom Tov, and in it he puts in always like a square on each piece, and he tells you how to practice these halachas if you would be in the Beis HaMikdash. So there's the halachas of Shavuot, regular, and then there's Hilchas Mashiach. Mashiach comes, and this is how you practice it. So what is Shavuot? It goes like this. There were two sheep that were offered. It's called Shnei Kvasim. And those two sheep are shechted, or slaughtered. And what you do with them is you take the sheep, two sheep. On each of the sheep you put a loaf of bread. It's called the Shtei Alechem. And you take the two sheep, each with the bread on top of it, and you wave it. You wave them, it's called Tnufa. Yep. How do you wave? You thinking about something else? That was Korban HaOmer, was waved, והניף HaOmer, that's another waving. It was done. That's the beginning of Sfiras HaOmer. This is at the end. You wave them. How do you wave? Molich o mevi ma'aleh o morid. You go up, you go back and forth, up and down, and you wave it. And it's very interesting what this waving was about. And what's with a sheep. Now, what's also interesting is that we have sheep that we offer every single day. So somehow sheep is very important to us, because in the Beis HaMikdash, part of the work was every morning you offered a sheep. And every evening, the last korban of the day was another sheep. Now, today we don't do sheep at all. So, on a regular day, what do? We daven Shachris and Mincha. Shachris is because of the morning sheep, and Mincha is for the afternoon sheep. The question is it even relevant to know that these were sheep? Or are you going to say, oh, whatever? Actually, if you want to know how to daven, davening every day is una shalma porim sfaseinu. You are reenacting the all the korbanos, the bulls, and the sheep, and you're offering them. And so in order to be able to daven, you have to understand the sheep. Because when you understand the sheep, you know how to daven, and you know how to do Shavuot. So we want to go into this idea of sheep, and thereby understand the davening every day and the specialness of Shavuot. And the important thing to understand about sheep is this. Sheep have a very distinct nature. The nature of a sheep is meek, humble, arouses compassion. The sound of a sheep, the bah, is a compassionate sound. It arouses rachamim. And so when you think of a sheep, what do you think about? Generally, and it's not necessarily positive, we would say, like sheep to the slaughter. And that's not positive. Would you and I want to be like sheep? Is it a virtue to be like a sheep? Meaning, to have absolutely no opinion of your own and to let go completely. Well, there's two ways to look at it. One way to look at it is, I'm not letting go, man. No chance. Because if I let go, that in my language is called being abused. But what's the difference between being abused versus being abused and taken advantage of? Because if you're a good person, you just all the time, you're just a people pleaser and you're doing whatever people want and you're just always there for other people, that's stunning and beautiful and magnificent, but you can also be taken for a ride. And you can be taken advantage of. So there's a... What?
Versus surrender.
Surrendering could be actually a tremendous, tremendous virtue. Because surrendering means, in other words, it's called being taken care of. Right? Surrender works sometimes wonders. For example, the body surrenders totally to the soul. If, God forbid, it doesn't, that's not good. When the body surrenders to the soul, you see my fingers? Thank God, they're moving. The body, which is the actual physical finger, and the soul, which is the power to move, are completely in sync. They're aligned with each other, totally synchronized. So when I want to move, I don't think about it, it automatically moves. That's called life. If the body and the soul are not synchronized, God forbid, that means a person's suffering, a stroke or the like. That's terrible. Now the question is, what would it take for the soul, right, for your whole being and persona to be aligned with the divine, with God? When you're aligned with Hashem, well, think about it like your telephone. Telephones need to be aligned with the energy and the cyber energy that's all out there, which animates them. If you're aligned, what happens? You get to work and operate optimally. If you're not aligned, if you're misaligned, then your phone is constantly looking for a signal. And that's disastrous. What's it like in life when you're constantly looking for a signal? I think many of us struggle with this. We struggle with looking for a signal. Looking for a signal means that what's going to happen is going to make me happy. So I need something to happen to make me happy. And that something could be very, very, very important, like finding a shidduch and getting married. And when you wonder, what am I going to do in the meantime? So what happens to us in the meantime is we keep on searching for the signal. And when you're searching for the signal, it means you're fighting against the current, right? You're unhappy. And when you're fighting against it, you lose out because you're not surrendered to the situation. Spiders know this well. Spider creates a web, and then he waits for the fly to fly in and get stuck. And what does he do then? He does absolutely nothing. He watches the fly, and the fly flies in, and the spider just sitting on the side, and he's not going to attack the fly. Because if he attacks the fly right now, what's going to happen? The fly's going to fight him back, because he's not going to give up his life for no reason. So what he does is he waits for the fly to go crazy, because the fly feels stuck. And the fly's not able to surrender himself to the situation and where he is. And once he goes insane and meshuggah and jumping and thrashing and trying to escape, and finally he loses all his strength. Now the spider comes in and there's no resistance. He eats him up. He's won the battle. Imagine you could live life and let go into the divine energy that's animating you at every given moment and be able to live with it. And the same as the body is aligned to the soul and the telephone is aligned to the energy behind it, you could be aligned with divine energy. Life does not always go the way we want it to go. It often goes in the opposite direction. And the question is whether you're able to brace and roll. And when you brace and roll, what do they call that? In a fire? Then you survive. Because now you have power that you didn't know existed before. The way Hashem designed the world, by design, here's what happens. There's an ayin and a yesh. We say the world's created yesh me'ayin. You ever heard that? Yesh me'ayin means something from nothing. So I'm something, and I come from absolutely nothing. The goal is that the yesh lets go and submits himself to the ayin. So the I and the existence of me lets go of the me and allows I don't want to use the term, but this is what they call it, the universe. And submit to the universe. We say submit to God. and allow Hashem to take me over. It is actually an exhilarating experience. What's the problem? The problem is, then how do you do things in life? If you don't care about what's happening and just letting go completely all the time, you're also going to be a person who's just sitting and a sitting duck and just letting go. So, in Kabbalah, there are two operating systems. Just like you have, a Mac and a Windows, and you have to understand the difference between Apple and Windows, right? And they're very, very different. So it works exactly the same way. Much more actually. The two operating systems are called Tohu and Tikkun. Ever heard of them? When Hashem creates the world, Bereshis bara Elokim, then what does it say? Va'aretz hayta tohu. Tohu vavohu, chaos. Tohu is chaos. The other operating system is Tikkun, which is orderliness. Things are fixed up, and they work, and they operate. So the way they operate is very different. Tohu, animals are Tohu. Ever see animals? If you meet an animal, you'll see animals have a distinct nature. One distinct nature. There's no complexity and there's no options. They don't understand other opportunities and other ways of thinking. So a raven is known to be cruel. A raven is, it says achzari. Which animal is compassionate? A bird is compassionate, The eagle. The eagle is compassionate. What that means is that an eagle is always compassionate and a raven is always cruel. That's the natural order of what they do. If you meet a lion's going to behave in one type of way. Again, will a lion always eat you? No. Depends if he's hungry or not. Depends what's going on in the situation, of course. Will a bull always gore you? No, given certain circumstances, he will. But the nature of the bull is always the same. In Tommy animals, the nature of a dog is one type of nature, and the nature of a cat is another type of nature. And right, that, my sister-in-law doesn't like cats, but they live in the city, and in their home they have a cat. And when I was trying to understand why you guys get cats, because I know my brother loves animals, he'll get any animal he can. But how do you work the two together? He says, well, we have animals at home. We live in this, beautiful, gorgeous Manhattan place, and somehow it's connected to all the other thousands of apartments next to us. So it's a question of which animals should we have in the house. Prefer mice or prefer cats? Now, when you get a cat, you won't have mice. Because it's predictable. Cat grabs mice, right? What about a dog? He'll also kill the mouse, but the mouse is not scared of him. What? Bugs? A dog he'll chase the mouse. It's like a certain nature of what they do. How do you know? Maybe this dog's different. It's not. This is what dogs do, this is what cats do. They just behave in a certain way. Animals have a distinct type of behavior and they get stuck on that. That's called tohu. The world of tohu is you have one character trait, one emotion, one type, and you stick with it all the way. Now, human beings have different points in their lives. Little children are much more operating system of tohu. That's why you see a child, when they're happy, little baby, the face just shines, the whole being shines. It's magnificent because it's so authentic. Contrast that with an adult. When they're giving you a shining face, but they're thinking about all the things that are bothering them now, and maybe this, and maybe that, and maybe not. So the face is never actually shining because they're never present. Tohu is presence, absolute presence. You're right here. Tikkun is almost like, it's much more controlled, right? So which one's better, Tohu or Tikkun? Is it better to be a child or better to be an adult? Children are awesome. You watch them in the car,
they're present.
right? They're present. But you know what that means? When he's angry, whew. You ever see a child angry? They're just angry. And they can't understand any other way of looking at things. And you're trying to explain to them, it's wondrous. You're trying to explain what happens. The child already forgot about why he's angry. So the adult's sitting there trying to explain why he shouldn't be angry. And the child's like, I'm not angry. But why are you not angry? Because I switched midah. I'm not an animal, right? I'm a child. But I switched, I'm on the next thing. I thought about it. I was two siblings. They fight with each other. And the parents trying to control. And then 2 minutes later, they're playing best friends. And you're wondering how that happened? Because there wasn't an intellectual process. It was an emotion. I'm done with that emotion. Move on to the next one. Boom, boom. So Tikkun tries to see the whole picture, resolve things, figure things out. Toyu's like, which one's better? It depends, right? There's no clear-cut answer. The answer is, I'd much rather be Toyu, actually. But I want to use my Toyu for the right purposes. So I need Tikkun to tell me when to use Toyu. In other words, I'd love to have an emotion that gets me, that's totally and utterly clear. At the same time, I want to be connected. Right? I want to be connected. At the same time, I want to understand when to use it so that no one can abuse their powers on me. Because if I don't direct it correctly, that's not good, right? People go on vacation. You ever see people planning a vacation? It's wondrous. What you're really trying to do is plan, right? I have to go somewhere I wasn't there before. I have to go somewhere interesting. I have to be able to, essentially I have to be able to take a selfie on top of a mountain. And I have to be able to climb there and utilize all my energy when I go there. I have to be able to get up there and feel accomplished that I did something. Can't be too difficult and can't be too easy, but it's got to be like I got up there and I did it. And then I took that selfie. I feel that sense of accomplishment. Now I walk back down. In other words, what I'm looking for is to lose myself for a moment. See that? That's what I want. I want to be able to be part of the universe. Just let go. It is exhilarating to do that. That's why I sing. When I go to a kumsitz, I'm singing away. What I want is to lose myself. That's Toyu. But I don't want to be abused in the process. So the ultimate goal is to be able to combine and connect the worlds of Toyu and Tikkun simultaneously. It's called Oirois the Toyu, use the light and energy of Toyu, Kalim the Tikkun, and have a receptacle to hold it, a vessel of Tikkun.
What's Tikkun? What is it?
Tikkun is metukan, to fix. Right? Tikkun is our will. Here's how it operates. In Olam HaToyu, it's like this emotion, that one, each one on its own.
You said present.
So each one's present.
Okay.
But I'm present here, I don't care about you. We're in the time of Sfira Soimer, right? The students of Rabbi Akiva, what happened to them? Why'd they die? Because they didn't respect one another. So now, they were students of Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva, if you're a student of Rabbi Akiva, and Torah says you're a student of Rabbi Akiva, that means you actually learn from him. And Rabbi Akiva taught, after Hakamocha, it wasn't just teaching. Rabbi Akiva omer zeh klal gadol b'Torah. So every single one of his students failed in that area. Strange, right? They didn't fail. They actually did it because they were students of his. What happened was, each student had a certain path, and they were toyu, in that sense. So I got my direction. Now, you don't seem to get it, right? And I love you because my Rabbi Akiva taught me I gotta love every Jew. So if I love every Jew, what do? I have to make sure you get it. And if you didn't get it, I can't respect you. You see the idea? So they couldn't respect each other because they cared for each other. If I don't care about you, do what you want. Nowadays, we live in like a world, it's all good, live and let live. You want to do your thing, whatever you want, it's all good. There's a lot of incredible positive to that. But it's also there because we're not really connected to anything. So you do whatever you want, because why not? If you could bind the two together, Toyu and Tikkun, what does that mean? It means I'm absolutely, clearly, authentically me. And I see you as very different from me, and you're clearly wrong. and I still have absolute love for you. That's your ability to connect. Toyu is each one on its own. Tikkun is the cooperation of all together. Toyu and Tikkun together means absoluteness in each one, and yet being able to cooperate with somebody else. Now, how does that connect to the sheep? Here's how. Because a sheep is an animal. Every animal is by definition from the world of Toyu. Its modus operandi is Toyu. That means it's complete one type of character trait, and that's it. But of all the animals, which animal is has the most power of absolute letting go? The answer is the sheep. Because what is a sheep? He just follows. He has, we don't understand it. He has absolutely no sense of self. Zero. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And he just follows. Now, when I see a sheep, I gotta tell you, on the one hand, sometimes I think about the sheep. I'm like, you're literally just you're letting yourself be shechted. Why would you do that? You're being taken advantage of. And I see him negatively. But sometimes I wish I could be like the sheep. Do you ever have that? Yeah. Sometimes I wish I didn't have that issue. Like the Ramban says, that when you see an animal being slaughtered, shechted, what are you supposed to think about? Remember this one? When you see shechita, you're meant to think that, should it be me? And the Ramban's whole idea of explanation, Hasidically, is that, what does it mean, should it be me? Meaning, I think I start to scream as I think about me being shechted. Ouch. No, it's not what it means. I mean, not only what it means. On a deeper level, it means I envy the sheep who was able to be shechted. Because that sheep, it means he was able to get onto the mizbeach, onto the altar, and he doesn't have any sense of self. I wish I didn't have to contend with the pain of existence. Because existence is painful. Ever noticed that? It's hard to be and to have to think all the time and to figure things out and whatever. It's much, much, much better in a certain sense just to be taken care of. I always marvel, I gotta tell you. I think that men and women, in a certain sense, have this very difference in quality between Toyu and Tikkun. Men are from Tikkun and women are from Toyu. And you'll notice it's really wondrous to notice sometimes. But I don't get, for example, when I see my wife or my daughter's friends, and they're trying to figure out who's that friend, because it's someone from a bunch of years ago, and then she has a different name now, and you're trying to work out what's her name, because I knew her as that name, and then she changed her name. I don't understand how someone would change their name. I just don't get it. I can't. What I should you get married and then you give your identity to someone else. You change your name. It's ludicrous. I cannot grasp the idea of someone being willing to give up their identity to someone else. And I think women see it very naturally. Of course, some women today would like to use both names. And they want to show that I don't give my identity over to someone else. I have my own. But I'm pretty sure that the natural tendency of a woman is that it's actually very good. As long as that guy is a mensch. As long as he's a good guy, and if you take care of me, actually, I don't want to have another name. I want your name. So I prefer it this way. And you get it? It's like a difference between the two operating systems. I don't begin to understand. And so when you look at, the Balatanya once went and he was passing by and he saw his wife talking to a bunch of friends. And she told them, he was just overhearing the conversation. She said to them, they were talking about their husbands. And so she said, Meiner sagt. She says, mine says whatever he says. And he was like, he walked past and he's thinking to himself, mine? Like I'm hers? What makes me hers? She says, mine, my husband. And then he thought to himself, mine? Essentially what she's saying is that because the Torah gave a mitzvah, and the mitzvah is of getting married, so as a result of that, it's my husband, because the mitzvah of Torah binds us together. And then he thinks to himself, you know what's interesting? Is that in the relationship between us and Hashem, so we're the wife and he's the husband. And so he says, Mit ein mitzvah bin ich deiner. He makes this one mitzvah which makes me yours. Mit wie viel mitzvahs bin ich dem Ebenstens? With how many mitzvahs I belong to Hashem? And then he went into a state of dvekus, a trance, where he was just like enveloped by this ability to be completely absorbed into Hashem. He learned from his wife, when you see how she felt about him, how he could feel about Hashem. And he remarked after, he says, Tzenorena b'nois Tzion. That if you want to go out of yourself, Tzenorena b'nois Tzion means go out and see daughters of Tzion. He says, go out of yourself and you'll see. If you want to go out of your own experience and see God, you have to look at b'nois Tzion, at the way the daughters of Zion act, and then you'll understand. Because it's a total sense of oneness. And so he would go into a state of dvekus. Dvekus meant a complete sense of letting go. And letting go is, there's no sense of self. You know, Reb Shimon ben Yochai, when he got to the last day of his life on Lag B'Omer, what he said was, he says, Nishmasi, my soul, Pasach Reb Shimon ben Yochai, he says, my soul is, I'm experiencing, he says, all my life I was thinking about the Pasuk, Ba'Hashem tishalil nafshi. That in Hashem my soul should be excited. And I couldn't read it. And now I get to the point of, I feel beyachida, beylehita, beyisdabkas ruchi. In him I experience achdus, excitement, and a sense of oneness. It's a process. It's a process whereby, you know, when you have dvekus is awesome. It means it's connecting. But there's me and you. I'm working my way up towards being a flame and towards being able to become one with you. There is no greater experience than the ability to become one with Hashem. Absolute oneness. In a sense, that's what the sheep gets to do. And every morning when we daven, what is davening about? And every afternoon when we daven, what we want is to become a little sheepish. We want to get the power of the sheep and accrue the power of the sheep into us so that we too can experience that awesomeness of the yesh becoming absorbed into the ayin, of letting go completely without having a sense of self and it being totally about Hashem. It is an exciting experience. Now, if you pay attention, so in Torah, the word keves means a sheep. But sometimes, there's a bit of a dyslexia, so it appears. And when you're a Baal Korah and you're laning, you often get a little bit lost because it doesn't always say keves. It sometimes says kesev. Haksavim. Sometimes hakvasim and sometimes haksavim. And in Hebrew, the word keves means a sheep. The word kesev also means a sheep. So what's the difference between keves and kesev? Keves and kesev are the same thing. The difference is the order of the letters. And it's very important in the difference between them. You see, there's a chaf, a bet, and a sheep in the word keves. So each one of them signifies it's, right, when I'm doing the work of the sheep, I'm trying to be like the sheep. There's a process of how to let go and how to be absorbed into something higher. So we have desire, or desire is everywhere, I should say, intellect and emotions. And the normal order is keves. Chaf is keter, Ketzer is the crown, which is in Kabbalah, the desire. The bet is Bechokma Yivne Bayit, the bet. Bet represents the two, which is Chochma and Bina, intellect. And the Shin is three-pronged, because the Shin represents the three emotions. So there's a desire, which leads to an understanding of how you want to operate, and that leads you into your emotions. That's the normal order. At their core, at their root, it's the other way around. The Shin, which is the emotions, comes before the Beis, which is the intellect. Here's why. Why do you want something? When you decide, when you have a feeling towards something, where does the feeling come from? It appears to be that the feeling is the result of an intellect. I understand a particular way, and therefore I feel that way. So I go out with someone, I figure out why it's a good, worthy person to marry, and as a result of that, the emotion follows. And so I fall in love. What's really true, though, is the other way around. That the reason why you go out with someone and you fall in love with them is because Hashem preordained that your soul was connected to that other person, and as a result of that, you fell in love with them. So the love is not the result of the intellect. In actuality, the love is the core. The love precedes the intellect. At their core, it's kesev. Hashem controls everything. And Hashem's desire is the power behind everything. That leads to the emotions, which leads you to intellectualize and understand in a particular way. But when you live in this world, you don't see the kesev, you see the keves, and so you think you're making the decisions, and based on your decisions is what the emotions follow. Get the difference? Yeah. Again, keves is where the intellect, the Beis, precedes the Shin. Intellect leads to emotion. The truth about life is, Me Hashem mitzadei gever konanu. The truth about life is, you don't choose where you're going to live, you don't choose who you're going to get married to, you don't choose anything. Everything in life gets chosen for you by Hashem. But you don't get to see that, you get to choose yourself. So life goes like this. You're walking around, you're like, what should I do next? Should I marry this person? Should I not? Then you don't get married to them. Why didn't I? Why I'm upset all the time, and you're fighting against the energy. And what's the real truth? That Hashem puts you in the space and ordains the whole thing in the first place, and he decides the emotion comes before the intellect. And when you live that way, it's a whole different type of living. So what it says is, Torah tells us, right, Yaakov was working with Lavan, and he worked with a lot of sheep. Yaakov was all involved with sheep. What does it say? V'haksavim hifrid Yaakov. What did Yaakov do? He separated the ksavim, and he brought them down into the kevasim. Every morning we offer a keves. In simple terms, what it means is as follows. If your emotions are not checked and not controlled, then what happens is they go awry. So, Avraham Avinu, which emotion is that? Chesed, love. Avraham has a child. What's his child name? The wrong one. The other one. Yishmael. Do you know that Yishmael was a splitting image of Avraham?
Really?
Meaning in his type of life.
That's why you look like Jews?
No, he didn't look like Avraham. I'm saying he was the same type of personality as Avraham Avinu. Avraham was dynamic, exciting, changing the world. Avraham walked in. When he walked into the room, right, like the loudest guy in the room was Avraham. He walks into the desert, and he becomes like a beacon of light in the desert. That's an excitable person, right? Yitzchak was polar opposite of Avraham. When you looked at Yitzchak, what did you see? Gvura. He was yira, right? Fear. So Yitzchak would sit there. Avraham walks into the room and the life of the party. Yitzchak didn't even notice that he existed. When people saw Yitzchak, they thought that Yitzchak doesn't come from Avraham. They thought Yishmael comes from Avraham because Yishmael was a splitting image identical to Avraham. The reason was Yishmael was chesed. But you know what happened to Yishmael? What did he use his chesed for? He said, love, love, love. So he loves everybody. And he got married to a bunch of people. And whenever he met people, he was the most immoral individual you could ever imagine. because it was the love of Avram gone unchecked. That's what went wrong. What happened to Yitzchak? He had another son. That son was identical to his father. His name was Esau. The wrong one. Esau was exactly the same as his dad. His dad was Gvura, so was Esau. Gvura gone wrong. So what did Esau become? Esau and Ishmael, opposites. Because Ishmael was like Avram and Esau was like Yitzchak. So Esau was a murderer. Esau was not the kind of person you want to meet in the street, right? When you met Ishmael in the street, he was a lovely guy. Too lovely. When you met Esau in the street, he wanted to kill you. Because Esau comes from Yitzchak. And so Yitzchak is Gvura. And Ishmael comes from Avram. That's the problem, right? You wake up in the morning tefillah is Avram. Avram made Shachris, Yitzchak made Mincha. Avram is the morning tefillah. When you wake up in the morning, it's so beautiful. You're fresh. You want to it's just like this feeling of, right? You wake up 5 o'clock in the morning. You ever done that before the world wakes up? It's just you feel fresh and you feel like you can change the world and you can just, it's so good. And then what happens? And then you start doing wonderful, lovely things which you shouldn't be doing. So unchecked, it goes the wrong direction. In the afternoon, in the evening, by Yitzchak, you're feeling Gvura. You've had a whole day and you're feeling, sometimes spent from the day. And then you get all sorts of midas, emotions like anxiety that comes your way. So that's why, what do we Jews do when we see the feeling of Avram and the feeling of Yitzchak? In order that it shouldn't arrive at Ishmael and Esau, what we do is we make a deposit of sheep. We deposit the sheep. What does that mean? Letting go completely. It's not about me, it's about me letting myself go to something higher, to Hashem. That's the work. The work is to offer a sheep. A sheep is that I am not in control. I let go completely. I'm absorbed completely into the light of Hashem. How do you do that? How do you offer a sheep? The answer is called tefillah. When you sit down and you daven, so you wake up in the morning and you go into a space of davening and you're arousing your sense of love to be directed at Hashem. And what you're saying to yourself is, hey, whatever happens during the course of this day, it's awesome. I notice Hashem in my life every single moment, right? It's just, it's wondrous to pay attention. That in the story of Purim, right, there was a queen, and they could always have argued that it was a natural occurrence that happened. Because Esther was the queen, so that's why we were saved. What do you want? What the Jews were able to do was let go of the external facade and just completely be absorbed into Hashem. They got excited over the miracle. They made a special Masechta, right? A Megillah of Megillah Esther and a Masechta called Megillah, which they didn't do by Hanukkah. Hanukkah was a much more revealed miracle, the 8 days of the oil, whereas Purim wasn't. But the Jews don't see nature. You see that? A Jew's the yesh absorbed into the ayin. What a Jew's mission is I don't see things. All I see is Hashem, Hashem, Hashem everywhere. That's the sheep. In the morning and in the afternoon. To check my chesed and check my gvura, align them with Hashem. I'm a sheep. And then once a year, we get to Shavuot. What do we do on Shavuot? Shavuot, we take the 2 sheep and we offer them totally to Hashem. Because on Shavuot, what happened was we received the Torah. And receiving the Torah puts us in a whole new plane, a whole new level. Shavuot is a level of a Jew who's done the work of connecting to God over the course of Pesach and Sfiras Omer. And he looks at life now, and what he sees is Hashem. We were talking the other time about the alchemist. You know what an alchemist is? Remember him? Alchemist? An alchemist, I don't know what it was either. But then I Googled it and I discovered that it actually is there. How do you discover what it is? In Shar B'Tochin talks about the alchemist. So Baal HaChimya, it became the chemists of today. These guys, what they did was they had a power to take tin and make it into silver. And they took silver and made it into gold. I'm not sure how they did it, but he could take any raw material and make money out of it. So Shar B'Tochin, there's the opening of Shar B'Tochin. He says, you have the power To be a Bala Bitochen is the same as the alchemist. Someone who has bitachon in Hashem, trust in Hashem, is the same as the alchemist. What does that mean? You don't need to go there to get Hashem. Where do you find Hashem? Boom, right here. Here's how it works. You look at life and you say, what are the raw materials that Hashem gave me now? And the answer is, I don't have any kids. I'm alone. No money. No satisfaction. I'm in, what do they call it in Lakewood? The freezer. Right? I'm in this lock-hold state. So what the alchemist does is, what most people do is, they wait for the thing to go away and they push and push and push till that thing comes about. What the alchemist does is, he says, the raw materials of here and now are going to be transformed into divine energy. How do I do that? When you have bitachon in Hashem, it means you let go. It means you look at yourself and you say, okay, what am I feeling right now? Feeling very, very concerned, very worried, very anxious, and I'm resisting the energy. I'm now going to download some toihu power into me. I'm going to realize that I don't control nothing. I have to tell you, the other day I was I was sitting, for a few hours and essentially watching an older person, and they were letting go of life. And I was in the room, and the kids were asking me, did you ever see this before? And I haven't seen it too many times, no. But that experience of sitting down there and being at the last moments of life is very sobering. And you walk out of it, and it's very depressing, actually. But it's also extremely uplifting. Because at the end of the day, you get to realize that if I walked out of there, my hands are still moving, and I'm still alive, what that means is that Hashem has given me a mission. And as depressing and sad as it might be, I have a mission, I have something I can do, I can accomplish. And so what's my goal now? The goal is to stop being scared of anything and just go and get all the daring and be able to roll with the punches. I'm an alchemist. I make lemonade out of lemons. I make the most awesome situation out of the here and now. And what you'll discover is that if you can absolutely let go in this moment, not the next one, this is hard work, then you make miracles out of the current situation. I can't forget what I saw in an interview with Rabbi Lau, Israel Meir Lau, former chief rabbi. And he said, the guy asked him a question. He says, Rabbi Lau, you went through the Holocaust. You got out, you were a 7-year-old boy. Your childhood was taken away from you. Your parents were murdered and massacred. All your siblings were massacred except for one. You walked into the worst. You came to Eretz Yisrael. You had no one. You were absolutely alone. He says, how are you such a positive person? He's sitting over there, like the energy you feel in the room is just like it lights you up. So he looks at the guy and he says to him, I don't understand the question. He says, you just said why. You asked him a question, but you explained why. He says, I'm a 7-year-old boy and I'm in the Holocaust. He says, no 7-year-old boys survived Auschwitz. I did. I got out of it. Everybody was murdered. That's terrible. My whole family was finished. There was no chance of me getting out. But I did. Do you get how much Hashem loves me? Do you get how connected I am to Hashem? He is literally a beacon of light. When you stand in his presence, you just feel like a giant. The whole manner of speech, and you feel absorbed into something higher. The reason is because he's absorbed into something higher. That's the sheep. So every morning and every afternoon, a Jew says to himself, look at life. Life's a disaster and whatever. Okay, get that out of your system. Instead of allowing the chesed to go this way and the gvura to go that way, align it to Hashem. Direct it into a relationship with the divine. Because what you'll discover is that when you let go of the current situation, however bad it is, and no one had it as bad as he did. That was pretty bad. When you let go, Hashem takes over. On Shavuot is the ultimate letting go. Because every day, the korban that you offer is a korban. What do you do with a korban, with a sheep every day? You burn it. Every day. It's korban oila, it's called. Why do you burn it? Because letting go is very powerful. And you got to let go. Once a year in Shavuot, what you do is, with that letting go, you actually make it into a korban shlamim. Shlamim means you eat the korban. So that sheep on Shavuot is eaten. And eating it signifies I'm making it a part of me. Because this is a system of living. The system of living is being able to feel me with the divine presence of Hashem. Roll with the punches. Teach yourself a simple technique in life. And when something goes wrong, don't try to solve the problem. Before you solve the problem, accept that this that happened wrong made me feel such and such, made me feel grief. And I accept the grief. I told this whole idea to a therapist over, and he told me that this is the general modality that you practice in therapy, which is not to fight the energy, but to accept the energy. So when you're feeling it, don't resist it, because if you resist it, you're resisting God. Accept it into you, and then find the joy in that space. And if you can find the joy in that space, what happens is it radiates on the outside. Now, how do you do it? You have to take the sheep and you wave them. What does it mean, wave them? From keves to kesev, back to their short source. It's the realization. It's waving means to look at my life and say, okay, what you're telling me is that my life is a mess. Because Rabbi Lau could have said my life's an absolute mess, but he doesn't say that. He says, the interviewer is saying to him, you really are messed up. What are you happy about? He's like, I don't know what you're saying. And because he said that, that's why he became who he became. Because he didn't believe what everyone else told him. That's what it means to wave it back up to its source, to see that you're not being abused, you're actually being taken care of. And what appears to be as a messed up life is Hashem taking care of you, loving you, giving you all the time the things that you need. And once you accept that, as the Shara B'Tochen says there, that sometimes it's hard. And as we discussed last week, like a mother, she's diapering the child, so the child feels taken care of by the mother. And this is not easy, but I'm still in Hashem's hands. And when I accept that, that's called waving the sheep back up to its source. And the way to do that is by putting the two breads on it. Two breads represents Torah. When we study Torah, as we are now, we get to see a different perspective. And we wave life back to its source. What it means to do that snufa is that the sheep looks like a very negative experience when you wave the sheep back to its source. Every day you offer the sheep and you let go. And you wave the sheep back to its source. And you say, waving it means it's shifting the paradigm. To let go is not to be taken advantage of. It's a virtue. It's the greatest virtue ever. No, don't let yourself be taken advantage of. Meaning, doesn't mean sit down and do nothing. It means go activate and do things. Absolutely. But at the same time, don't underestimate how awesomely, incredibly powerful it is to be able to let go and to not have to handle everything. So Hashem took care of me, and I feel Hashem's loving, warming, wonderful embrace in my life at this moment. And I can alchemist, and I can take that situation I have now, lemon, and make lemonade out of it. I get lemon juice, it's great. And my life changes because I see things in a new light. That's the sheep. That's the work of getting to Shavuot.